NBL 25 continues to roll on in all kinds of weird, wild and wonderful ways, and NBL Now is back with you on this Tuesday. It is New Year's Eve. It is almost party time, almost time to let the hair down. There'll be teams with New Year's resolutions. There'll be teams that just want to keep things the same as they are. Joel Peterson and Alice Kunek with you on this Tuesday. Morning, Al.
Good morning, JP. What a great morning it is to be here. Let's get this year done.
Good week for both you and I as well. Birthday's just around the corner. New Year's Eve, it's all happening.
I know. You're a January baby too, aren't you?
Yep.
Jan 6. Yep. It's going to be a new, fresh year. And I think a lot of teams, exactly what you were saying, are probably ready for that year to roll over or even the season to finish.
Absolutely. Let's dive into last night because there was so much made of this Adelaide-Sydney game. In Sydney yesterday, the Kings have been rolling in recent times and went down narrowly to the Hawks on Christmas Day. And Adelaide have been turmoil, uncertainty. It's been really interesting to watch all that's going on there. Then we get reports yesterday before that game starts of the kind of crisis meeting between the players and the coaches, and some of the details come out in the aftermath of that. And all up, they come out and steamroll Sydney in the opening quarter. The game is done 10 minutes in, 32-12 at quarter time, and it was a wonderful response from the 36ers under immense pressure.
Look, it was a really big moment for them as a club and as a team. We have seen what's been going on. You know, Harrell missed some games, Davis missed some games. There's been some unease in that team, and you could see it pretty much from the start there. Now, I actually had a game in Sydney yesterday also, and I ran into a couple of the players. I ran into Isaac in the lift, and I just said, how are you going? And he was like, yeah, it's been a pretty wild, crazy 24 hours. And, I've got to put my hand up and full respect to Isaac for speaking. Whether he wanted that moment back in the media, whether he wanted to say things differently, obviously what he said has made a huge impact, and there's been a response. They had a crisis meeting, I guess you could say, in Sydney, 6 p.m. Sydney, the day before the game. And, sometimes these things are the best things that can happen for your team. Everyone's got to be held accountable, from the coaches to the players, from the head office staff, from the trainers, everyone. Everyone's got to be made accountable. And they went through what's been going on. No one's happy. We don't know our roles. We don't know what's going on. Okay. Let's lay it out on the table. Let's see what needs to change. And obviously the change last night, the response, it was amazing. That first quarter, they were like a heater. It was amazing. But can they continue that? That is the next thing.
Yeah, and that's probably the question, given they've been pretty untrustworthy throughout the course of the season. In terms of what changes after a meeting like that, so take us into the team, into the players' mindset. Can these things sort of sustain over the length of the season? Are they a Band-Aid fix? What do you expect happens next? And how does this sort of look over the rest of the season?
Look, that's a really telling sign and a telling tale about what's to come in the future. I personally, from the outside looking in, I think it's a little bit of a Band-Aid. I think, with the personnel that they have and maybe, the coaching staff, is it the right mix? Winning games and winning championships are so hard. They are so hard to do. You need a lot of luck. You need a lot of, you need the right people. You need the right offense. You need the right coaching staff. There's so much that goes into winning games and winning championships. I think they have the right pieces. I think emotion really gets into that team, and, everyone gets heated. We see how Harrell plays. The crowd feeds off him. Everyone feeds off him. I'd love it to be a permanent fix. I'd love them to move forward because I think they have the right pieces. They've got great guards. They've got great, wing players. They've got really big inside presence. They just got to play defense. But, going in as a player, I've been in some of these meetings for sure. And, you lay it out all on the line. You tell what your side of the story is and what you think needs to happen. Obviously, the coaches are going to come back and high performance is going to come back at you. And that's when, everything's transparent. It's out in the air. You've got to perform. You've got to live up to what's being said. So, look, I really hope it's a fix for Adelaide. I really hope they can move forward because we know the talented roster that they have. It's now about putting your egos at the door, playing for the team, and moving forward as a team.
For all that Adelaide did that was good, Sydney came out pretty flat. to start that game. And we've seen this from them a little bit throughout the course of the season. There were obviously, there's cards stacked against them in terms of a couple of injuries at the moment, but they had plenty of rest. They had significantly more rest than their counterparts did, for instance. And they just could not muster what was required. What do you make of that Sydney performance? Is it one you're sort of willing to write off and say, well, Adelaide would just had a head of steam up and sort of the Sydney ran into this buzzsaw that wasn't going to lose, or are there deeper concerns for you with the Kings?
For me, there's deeper concerns for the Kings. I think they have too many highs and too many lows in a season. They've got too many guys that don't show up. And I've listened to that Brian Goorjian press conference. He said that he didn't prepare the team well enough for that game. Come on, it's professional basketball. You're all getting paid a lot of money and you've got to perform. You've got to rock up. People are paying really good money to come watch you guys play. I think they had nearly 12,000 people at the stadium last night. There's too much inconsistency with the Sydney Kings, I think. Some people really come to play. I don't know how many injuries they have. It looked like they had a pretty full roster for the most part last night, their main guys. We know what Goorjian said. He didn't get them up. But you've got to remember, Adelaide, of course, they're going to come in with a full head of steam. But every team's coming with a full head of steam every single game. You're playing for a championship. You want to win. You've got to put those things at the door when you come into the stadium. Okay, hey, we're playing Adelaide. We're playing this team. We're playing that team. It doesn't matter. You're putting your best foot forward every single game, because if you want to get to the playoffs and if you want to win the thing, you've got to build those habits really early. And I think, we spoke about Brian Goorjian, and we're going to probably talk about what he said about Cam Oliver, but there's too many backseat passengers, I think, with the Sydney Kings. And maybe that's a little bit of, do they know the roles fully? Do they know what their defense is? Every week it seems to be a little bit different with the Sydney Kings from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's a really good call out that there's been so many chops and changes with the way that this rotation has functioned throughout the course of the season. And we know that their good is really, really good. They are stifling at the defensive end. They will strangle the life out of you, and they can get enough done on the offensive end to beat a lot of teams in our competition. But when they come up against a team that's playing really, really well, things seem to go awry. They did it again last night. And you mentioned the press conference with Brian Goorjian after that. So they ask about Cam Oliver, who didn't play a lot in the second half. Goorj says, basically, if you're not giving us what we need, you won't play. He referenced that he'd done it with Alex Tui recently as well. He says he's not pressing the right buttons with Cam Oliver. He's a better player than he's delivering at the moment. But he also said that, every time we go there in this situation, we're 20 down and it is going in a bad direction, in direct reference to one of his star players. What did you make of his comments, particularly around Cam Oliver after the game?
I got a few things to say about this one, JP. Look, one, it's professional basketball. You're getting paid a lot of money to be here. If you were in Europe, you would have packed your bags already, Cam Oliver. You would be on that plane out of there. You're a very talented basketball player. I'm sure you're a really great human. I don't know you as a human. I'm sure you're a really great human. And, but put that aside, you're here to play basketball. You're here to perform. There's too many inconsistencies with the way he's performing or the way he's being played. I also don't know what's going on behind closed doors at the Sydney Kings. So that's not really, I can't say what I know. But with Brian Goorjian, you shouldn't be having to press your start imports buttons to get him to play basketball. He should be rocking up to the game and thinking, you know what, I'm going to give you 20 and 10 today, or I'm going to give you every single part of what I have on the minutes that I'm being given. Brian Goorjian, I understand your response. I understand that, you're trying to see what works, and obviously it's not working for you with what you're going with. I like the response that he said, hey, I want my players to play at 100%. So if you're not going to give me 100% of the time, I'm going to give you a sub, and when you're ready, go back in and give me 100%. I like that. I fully respect that. I think that's a great coaching philosophy. But what's working with Cam Oliver is not working. And, you're playing at one of the best clubs in Australia. You're playing in one of the most amazing countries in the world. You're in Australia. You're in Sydney. So I can't imagine life at the Sydney Kings is all that bad right now. Okay, yeah, there are different personnel. You may not get along with one guy, or you may not like that, but that's like life, There are people you're not going to like in life. There are players you're not going to like playing with. But you have the privilege of being a professional basketball player and playing in one of the best leagues in the world. You've got to put your ego at the door and you've got to perform.
They've got a change coming. Olgun Ulich reporting yesterday that they're sort of on the precipice of signing an import guard within a week, so third import spot, to facilitate around Jalen Adams and make the team hum a little bit more. Are you surprised they went in that direction as opposed to a bit of reinforcement at those big positions? Or are you happy with sort of, if they're going to make a move, that's the move they're making?
Look, I am a little bit surprised. I thought Jalen Adam was super impressive last night. His last 5 or 6 games have been really solid. He is, for me, he is unguardable in this league. The way he can come off a pick and roll and, create for others, and his shot, consistency and his productivity in the offense. I think the big spot is probably where they need help. They are young in that 4 spot. They've got Zave in that 4, but then Zave has to push the 5. Then you've got Tui in there. And I think if you could have, maybe they're hoping that they can get Cam Oliver to keep going and they can, put the pieces around him and they can build him back up in time for the playoffs. And then you add that other guard position to help Jalen Adams. But it's late in the season. It's about to be January. A lot of teams have made their core and they all know their roles. And that's something that we thought with Sydney. Maybe they don't know their roles, or maybe there's inconsistency with the subbing and who's playing when and timing. But bringing import in this late in the season, what's an import going to come in and do? They're going to try and prove their worth. They're going to come in and score. Are they just a facilitator, or are they trying to score? That's what I think the thing will be, and the telling sign will be in the future. Is it going to be a scoring point guard, or is it going to be a 2-man, or are they just there to play there or facilitate? And not many imports are coming in just to facilitate.
It's a great insight. It's going to be so fascinating to see where the Sydney Kings go from here. And, of course, Adelaide have got Perth next. That's going to be a red-hot game as well. So there's a lot to play out for both of these two teams in the near future. Before we talk about tonight's game, so we've got a New Year's Eve doubleheader tonight. One of those games is absolutely enormous, and one of those games means a lot to the two teams that are involved in it, who are just trying to get a W. The Tassie JackJumpers on Sunday, 8 straight wins. They beat the Brisbane Bullets. Did it pretty convincingly in the end. The Bullets made it close late, but Tassie were in control for really the last 3 quarters of that game. What have you seen through Tassie's 8-game winning streak, and do you think they're a legit contender again?
I think they are a legit contender. I think, probably we were a bit harsh on them the first half of the season. Scott Roth's lost his way. The team's lost their way. No Jack McVeigh. You've got to remember, they had, 4 or 5, maybe 6 players who played in that championship winning series. They played under Scott Roth. They know how to win. They stuck to their principles. I have full respect for the way they played these last 8 games, and I think we've got to give them a lot of credit. Potentially with the roster that, they were out. Sean McDonald missed a lot of basketball. They didn't have that import. They weren't getting much from Swords. They've now gone with Hummer, who's not traditionally a scoring import, but what he gives them on the defensive end, I think, is exactly what Scott Roth needs. And now they're doing it without Will Magnay. And I think they've got all the pieces to really push in the finals time. And sometimes it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And they're coming into some really good form, 8 in a row. They're building their confidence. Milton Doyle's going. Jordan Crawford off the bench. He's giving them a really good punch. Jeremic is playing some great basketball off the bench. We know that Majok Deng is gonna play. He's gonna come out. He's gonna play. He's gonna give you minutes. Then you've got this Krislovic giving you minutes off the bench, and then you've got Steindl shooting the lights out. So they've got all the pieces. I think it'll be how they go late into, if they do make that top 4. Do they have enough big inside presence? Is what I really question with them.
Yeah, and whether they can roll through some of those teams that have certainly got that. The Fabian Krislovic call out's a good one too. Just very quickly, he was terrific. He struggled to start the year shooting the ball, but he was great. I think he had 4 or 5 offensive rebounds against Brisbane on Sunday, so he's playing some important minutes for Scott Roth at the moment. Let's get stuck into tonight's game. So we've got 2 on the slate. The early game from 5:30 is Illawarra and Southeast Melbourne. Now, the Hawks have been pretty much unbeatable of recent times. Southeast Melbourne their defense has turned around so far this season. They've been pushing themselves into finals contention. They go to the sandpit tonight to take on the Hawks. Are they a live chance in this one to spring and upset the Phoenix?
They are a live chance, but they have to play a 40-minute full game. They can't have lapses. They can't have moments. Playing the sandpit is tough. And Illawarra are playing some really great basketball. They are a team that know their roles. They know what they bring to the team. They know when their moment is. You look at someone like Mason Peatling. If I said to you that he'd be starting on Illawarra Hawks' starting five, you would probably say last year, you would laugh in my face. But he is playing great minutes. He knows his role. He does his role perfectly. He gets offensive rebounds, runs the floor. They've got the perfect mix and the perfect balance to, win games and win a championship. And the way they play for Tatum, the way they respect one another. Like I said, they may or not like one another, but they respect each other. By the way, I don't know that. I'm just saying, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. But the way they come out, the way they respect each other and play for one another and their coach, I reckon they're really hard to beat. Conversely, for Southeast Melbourne, they are coming, they've had a big break. I think they had a 10-day break from the 21st. That's a big break to have in this period. And Illawarra have played nearly 2 or 3 games now. So, look, I think they're playing some really good basketball. They can cause an upset, but they're going to have to play pretty much a 40-minute perfect game. I think they're JP.
Does the break help Southeast Melbourne at this time of year when everyone's playing so frequently? Can it work to your advantage, or can it be you come back after that 10 days and be a little bit rusty?
Oh, look, I know for me, if I'm having a 10-day break, I'm coming back a little bit rusty. That first quarter, you are needing a sub or a timeout ASAP to get that second win. But we know, they had a bit of banged up bodies. So maybe the break was good. They had a really good win leading up into Christmas, but 10 days is a lot of time to be between games. And then on the other hand, you've got Illawarra who are getting consistency. They had that game against Sydney where they were down. They found a way to win. They just seem to find a way to win and gel and put it together at the right time. Look, I think for me, I personally don't like that big a break. I think it's a long break between games, but every team is different.
They're going to have a busy January coming up as well, the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. So that's the early game. The late game tonight is Cairns and New Zealand, who have conspired to lose their past 22 games consecutively. New Zealand's last win came against Cairns a little bit earlier in the season, so they'll be hoping to make it 2 in a row. And the positive is, for one of these teams, Alice, that they will enter 2025 with that winning feeling again. No PJC for New Zealand, though, is a game changer. So the Breakers accepted that 5-game suspension. What did you make of where that ended up, and how on earth do they cope without him?
Firstly, gosh, I love you, JP. You just have to put a positive spin on that. I love that. Someone's going to enter the year with a win. Look, probably not going to be a barn burner. I don't know if it's going to be the most riveting game, but hopefully these teams can really, find their way for the last half of the season. I think it's been a tough season for both these teams. Conversely, travel and injuries on both sides of the table. Losing PJC is a real tough one for New Zealand. They have lost their way a little bit in the past couple of weeks. They've had injuries. They're not playing consistent basketball. It just seems like they've lost their way. And now without their leader and the guy that pretty much does everything for them and their main scorer in PJC, we know that New Zealand didn't contest the 5-game suspension, and we hope PJC is okay. We have been hearing some things, but we just hope he's okay, and we hope that, he, looks back and does some reflection on what's happened and he can get back healthy and get back into this lineup when the time has come. I think it was the right decision to not contest that 5-game suspension, but what this means for the New Zealand Breakers is tough. Who steps up in his absence? Does Mitch McCarron get some more minutes? Does King get some more minutes? Who takes that leading point guard position, which is ultimately their leader on the floor? And I think they're really going to miss him tonight. And I think this is a big opportunity for Cairns to get a win tonight.
Yeah, they'll be eyeing that one off, Cairns, having lost 14 in a row since earlier in the season. They were 3-1. They are now 3-15, and there was only, I think the Taipans posted yesterday, only single tickets remained for the Cairns Convention Centre tonight, so they'll be expecting a big crowd up there. And it's another really tough tough travel day for New Zealand as well, who've had a lot of that. And Scott Roth shouted that out after his Christmas Day presser as well, that they've been on the road for a long time, the Breakers, and doing it pretty tough. So they'd love a win. So that's the late game tonight. Two intriguing contests to get us through the new year, and then we go again on the 2nd of January, so New Year's Day off as far as NBL Hoops is concerned, for everyone just to soak it all up and get ready to get set for the January run. Al, great chatting hoops with you as always. Really appreciate your insight. Happy birthday for early next week.
And you too.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, JP. Have a happy new year, everyone.
Alice Kunek with us on NBL Now. Happy New Year to all out there. Doubleheader tonight. Make sure you tune in and enjoy it. And for all the news, NBL app and nbl.com.au.